take a big picture look at what's going on here. Over the next decade, 2 decades, it is expected that there will be $150 billion worth of oil and gas extracted off your coast. It's an extraordinary figure, but think of it in practical terms. That means, according to many experts, more than 2 billion tons of carbon emissions will come from your seabed, from those reserves, and be released into the atmosphere. I don't know if you, as a head of state, went to the COP in Dubai.
Let me stop you right there. Let me stop you
right before we get into this response. Just for context, this is BBC interviewing the Prime Minister of Guyana about some recent oil discoveries within the territory of Guyana.
right there. Do you know that Guyana has a forest forever that is the size of England and Scotland combined? A forest that stores 19.5 gigatons of carbon, a forest that we have kept alive, a forest that we have kept alive.
Does that give you the right?
No,
Does
no,
that give you the right to release all of this carbon?
Does that give you the right to lecture us on climate change? I am going to lecture you on climate change because we have kept this forest alive that stores 19.5 gigatons of carbon that you enjoy, that the world enjoy, that you don't pay us for, that you don't value, that you don't see a value in, that the people of Guyana has kept alive. Guess what? We have the lowest deforestation rate in the world. And guess what? Even with our greatest exploration of the oil and gas resource we have now, we will still be net zero. Guyana will still be net zero. With all our exploration,
couple of
we'll
points.
still be net zero.
Powerful words, Mr. President. But
I am not completed as yet. I am not finished as yet. I am just not finished as yet. Because this is the hypocrisy that exists in the world. The world in the last 50 years has lost 65% of all its biodiversity. We have kept our biodiversity. Are you valuing it? Are you ready to pay for it? When is the developed world going to pay for it? Or are you in the pockets? Are you in the pockets of those who have damaged the environment? Are you in the pockets, are you and your system in the pockets of those who destroyed the environment through the Industrial Revolution and now lecturing us? Are you in their pockets? Are you paid by them?
Let them know, right? Great job by the Prime Minister of Guyana here, and a few points that I want to iterate. Number one, for historical context, Guyana is a former British colony. Britain brought over to Guyana slavery, indentured servitude. Britain was responsible for a large loss of the native populations in Guyana. Britain took a lot of resources from Guyana, brought it back to Europe, made a lot of money on those resources, and as the Prime Minister rightly points out here, England, Europe kicked off the Industrial Revolution, which was responsible for modern recent start of climate change, right? Second point, the forest that the Prime Minister brings up here. The Amazon rainforest, a chunk of it is in Guyana, and Guyana has done a really good job at preserving this forest and keeping it safe. There's a lot of well-preserved, beautiful natural resources in Guyana, and as the Prime Minister points out, they take care of their natural resources a lot better than other countries do. Third point, there hasn't really been any or much oil extraction yet, right? The interviewer is pointing out what's going to happen in the future, what could happen with future oil extraction. It hasn't been that much yet. And even with those plans, the Prime Minister points out that they're going to remain net zero. And I feel like this point was ignored by the interviewer. However, what I would encourage the interviewer to do as well is, it's not necessarily the government of Guyana that's going to be drilling oil, right? It's mostly foreign companies. Exxon is a big player in this. They've been trying to get into Guyana, drill oil, and I would encourage BBC to interview Exxon and ask them what they're doing about their oil extraction methods. Lastly, my opinion here, I think that former colonial powers are really uncomfortable with their former colonies getting some sort of wealth or having some sort of opportunity to get bigger and better. There's unfortunately a large amount of poverty in Guyana, and that's mostly due to their colonial past, specifically Britain. So I find it funny and moronic, really, that England, represented sort of by BBC here, as I mentioned earlier, would be so critical of Guyana when they're the reason why has some of the issues that it does have. And good on the Prime Minister here for sticking to his guns, and good on the Prime Minister here of rightfully defending Guyana.